I lived all alone, without anyone I could really talk to, until I had to make a crash landing in the Sahara Desert 6 years ago. Something in my plane's engine had broken, and since I had neither a mechanic nor passengers in the plane with me, I was preparing to undertake the difficult repair job by myself. For me, it was a matter of life or death. I had only enough drinking water for 8 days. The first night, I went to sleep on the sand, 1,000 miles from my inhabited country. I was more isolated than a man shipwrecked on a raft in the middle of the ocean. So you can imagine my surprise when I was awakened at daybreak by a funny little voice saying,
"Please, draw me a sheep."
"What?"
"Draw me a sheep."
I saw an extraordinary little fellow staring back at me, very seriously. I stared wide-eyed at this apparition.
"Please,
"But what are you doing here?"
draw me a sheep."
In the face of an overpowering mystery, you don't dare disobey. Absurd as it seemed, 1,000 miles from all inhabited regions and in danger of death, I took a scrap of paper and a pen out of my pocket and made a drawing. He looked at it carefully.
"No, this one is already quite sick. Make another."
I made another drawing. My friend gave me a kind, indulgent smile.
"You can see for yourself. That's not a sheep. It's a ram. It has horns."
So I made my friend another drawing. But it was rejected, like the others.
"This one's too old. I want a sheep that will live a long time."
So then, impatiently, since I was in a hurry to start work on my engine, I scribbled a drawing. "This is just the crate. The sheep you want is inside."
"That's just the kind I wanted. Do you think this sheep will need a lot of grass?"
"Why?"
"Because where I live, everything is very small."
"Oh, there's sure to be enough. I've given you a very small sheep."
"Not so small as all that. Look, he's gone to sleep."
And that's how I made the acquaintance of the little prince. It took me a long time to understand where he came from. The little prince, who asked me so many questions, never seemed to hear the ones I asked him.
"What's that thing over there?"
It's not a thing. It flies. It's an airplane. My airplane.
"What? You fell out of the sky?"
Yes.
"So you fell out of the sky, too. What planet are you from?"
Do you come from another planet?
"Of course, that couldn't have brought you from very far."
And he fell into a reverie that lasted a long while. Then, taking my sheep out of his pocket, he plunged into contemplation of his treasure. "Where do you come from, little fellow? Where is this where I live of yours? Where will you be taking my sheep?"
"The good thing about the crate you've given me is that he can use it for a house after dark."
"Of course. And if you're good, I'll give you a rope to tie him up during the day. And a stake to tie him to."
"Tie him up? What a funny idea."
If you don't tie him up, he'll wander off somewhere and get lost.
"Where could he go?"
I don't know, anywhere. Straight ahead.
"Even if he did, everything's so small where I live. Straight ahead, you can't go very far."
That was how I learned a second very important thing, which was that the planet he came from was hardly bigger than a house. Every day I'd learn something about the little prince's planet, about his departure, about his journey. This was how I learned, on the third day, about the drama of the baobabs.
Isn't it true that sheep eat bushes?
Yes, that's right.
And therefore they eat baobabs, too.
Baobabs are not bushes, but trees, as tall as churches. Even a whole herd of elephants couldn't finish off a single baobab.
But before they grow big, they'd start out by being little.
True enough. But why do you want your sheep to eat little baobabs? I was forced to make a great mental effort to understand this problem all by myself. And in fact, on the Little Prince's planet, there were, as on all planets, good plants and bad plants. The good plants come from good seeds, and the bad plants from bad seeds. But the seeds are invisible. They sleep in the secrecy of the ground until one of them decides to wake up. But if it's a seed of a bad plant, you must pull the plant up right away as soon as you can recognize it. As it happens, there were terrible seeds on the Little Prince's planet. Baobab seeds. Now, if you attend to a baobab too late, you can never get rid of it again. It overgrows the whole planet. Its roots pierce right through, and if the planet is too small, and if there are too many baobabs, they make it burst into pieces. On the fifth day, thanks again to the sheep, another secret of the Little Prince's life was revealed to me. At that moment, I was very busy trying to unscrew a bolt that had jammed in my engine. I was quite worried, for my plane crash was beginning to seem extremely serious, and the lack of drinking water had made me fear the worst.
If a sheep eats bushes, does it eat flowers, too?
A sheep eats whatever it finds.
Even flowers that have thorns?
Yes, even flowers that have thorns.
Then what good are thorns?
The Little Prince never let go of a question once he'd asked it. I was annoyed by my jammed bolt, and I answered without thinking. Thorns are no good for anything. They're just the flower's way of being mean.
Oh, I don't believe you. Flowers are weak. They're naive. They reassure themselves whatever way they can. They believe their thorns make them frightening.
I made no answer. At that moment I was thinking, if this bolt stays jammed, I'll knock it off with a hammer.
Then you think flowers...
No, not at all. I don't think anything. I just said whatever came into my head. I'm busy here with something serious.
Something serious? You talk like the grown-ups. You confuse everything. You've got it all mixed up. For millions of years, flowers have been producing thorns. For millions of years, sheep have been eating them all the same. And it's not serious? Trying to understand why flowers go to such trouble to produce thorns that are good for nothing. Suppose I happen to know a unique flower, one that exists nowhere in the world except on my planet. One that a little sheep can wipe out in a single bite one morning. Just like that, without even realizing what he's doing. That isn't important?
He couldn't say another word. Night had fallen. I dropped my tools. What did I care about my hammer, about my bolt, about thirst and death? There was, on one star, on one planet, on mine, the Earth, a little prince to be consoled. I took him in my arms. I rocked him. The flower you love is not in danger. I'll draw you a muzzle for your sheep. I'll draw you a fence for your flower. I didn't know what to say. It's so mysterious, the land of tears. I soon learned to know that flower better. On the Little Prince's planet, there had always been very simple flowers, But this one had grown from a seed brought from who knows where, and the little prince had kept a close watch over a sprout that was not like any of the others. It might have been a new kind of baobab, but the sprout soon stopped growing and began to show signs of blossoming. The little prince, who had watched the development of an enormous bud, realized that some sort of miraculous apparition would emerge from it. And then, one morning, precisely at sunrise, she showed herself.
I'm hardly awake, forgive me. Oh, I'm still all untidy.
How lovely you are.
Aren't I? And I was born at the same time as the sun. I believe it's breakfast time. Would you be so kind as to tend to me?
And the little prince, utterly abashed, having gone to look for a watering can, served the flower. But she soon began tormenting him with her rather touchy vanity. One day, for instance, alluding to her 4 thorns, she remarked to the little prince,
"Oh, I'm ready for tigers, with all their claws."
There are no tigers on my planet. And besides, tigers don't eat weeds.
Well, I'm not a weed.
Oh, forgive me.
I am not at all afraid of tigers, but I have a horror of drafts. You wouldn't happen to have a screen?
A horror of drafts. That's not a good sign for a plant. How complicated this flower is.
After dark, you will put me under glass. How cold it is where you live. It's quite uncomfortable. Well, where I come from,
And she suddenly broke off. She had come here as a seed. She couldn't have known anything of other worlds. Humiliated at having let herself be caught on the verge of so naive a lie, she coughed 2 or 3 times in order to put the little prince in the wrong.
What about that screen?
I was going to go look for one, but you were speaking to me.
Then she made herself cough again, in order to inflict a twinge of remorse on him all the same. So the little prince, despite all the goodwill of his love, had soon come to mistrust her. He had taken seriously certain inconsequential remarks and had grown very unhappy. On the morning of his departure, he put his planet in order, and when he watered the flower one last time and put her under glass, he felt like crying.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I've been silly. I ask for your forgiveness. Try to be happy.
He was surprised that there were no reproaches. He stood there, quite bewildered, holding the glass bell in midair.
Of course I love you. It was my fault you never knew. Oh, it doesn't matter. But you were just as silly as I was. Try to be happy. Oh, and put that glass thing down. I don't want it anymore.
But the wind.
Oh, my cold isn't that bad. The night air will do me good. I'm a flower.
But the animals.
Oh, I need to put up with 2 or 3 caterpillars if I want to get to know the butterflies. Apparently they're very beautiful. Otherwise, who will visit me? You'll be far away. As for the big animals, I'm not afraid of them. I have my own claws.
And she naively showed her 4 thorns.
Don't hang around like this. It's irritating. You made up your mind to leave? Now go.
For she didn't want him to see her crying. She was such a proud flower. In order to make his escape, I believe he took advantage of a migration of wild birds. He happened to be in the vicinity of asteroids, so he began by visiting them. The first one was inhabited by a king
Ah, here's a subject.
For kings, the world is extremely simplified. All men are subjects. The little prince looked around for a place to sit down, but the planet was covered by the magnificent ermine cloak. So he remained standing, and since he was tired, he yawned.
It is a violation of etiquette to yawn in a king's presence. I forbid you to do so.
I can't help it. I've made a long journey, and I haven't had any sleep.
Then I command you to yawn. Come on, yawn again. It is an order.
That intimidates me. I can't do it now.
Well, then I command you to yawn sometimes, and sometimes to...
He was sputtering a little and seemed annoyed, for the king insisted that his authority be universally respected.
Sire, excuse me for asking.
I command you to ask.
Sire, over what do you reign?
Over everything.
Over everything?
With a discreet gesture, the king pointed to his planet, to the other planets, and to the stars.
Over all that?
Over all that.
And the stars obey you? Even the sun?
Of course. They obey immediately. I tolerate no insubordination.
I'd like to see a sunset. Do me a favor, Your Majesty. Command the sun to set.
You shall have your sunset. I shall command it. But I shall wait, according to my science of government, until conditions are favorable. That will be around... That will be tonight around 7:40. And you'll see how well I am obeyed.
The little prince yawned.
I have nothing further to do here. I'm going to be on my way.
Do not leave! Do not leave!
If Your Majesty desires to be promptly obeyed, he should give me a reasonable command. He might command me, for instance, to leave before this minute is up. It seems to me that conditions are favorable.
The king, having made no answer, the little prince hesitated at first, and then, with a sigh, took his leave.
I make you my ambassador.
He had a great air of authority. The little prince thought that grown-ups are so strange. The second planet was inhabited by a very vain man. Now, to vain men, other people are admirers. Vain men never hear anything but praise. So the little prince continued on his journey. The next planet was inhabited by a drunkard. This visit was a very brief one, but it plunged the little prince into a deep depression. The drunkard was sunk in silence before a collection of empty bottles and a collection of full ones.
What are you doing here?
Drinking.
Why are you drinking?
To forget.
To forget what?
To forget that I'm ashamed.
What are you ashamed of?
Of drinking.
The drunkard withdrew into silence for good. And the little prince went on his way, puzzled. Grown-ups are certainly very, very strange, he said to himself as he continued on his journey. The fourth planet belonged to a businessman. This person was so busy that he didn't even raise his head when the little prince arrived.
Hello. Your cigarette's gone out.
3 and 2 make 5. 5 and 7, 12. 12 and 3, 15. Hello. 15 and 7, 22. 22 and 6, 28. No time to light it again. 26 and 5, 31. Whew. That amounts to 501,622,731.
500 million what?
You're still there? 501 million... I don't remember. I have so much work to do. I'm a serious man. I can't be bothered with trifles. 2 and 5, 7...
501 million what?
Oh, of those little things you sometimes see in the sky.
Flies?
No, those little shiny things.
Bees?
No, those little golden things that make lazy people daydream. Now, I'm a serious person. I have no time for daydreaming.
Oh, you mean the stars.
Yes, that's it. Stars.
And what do you do with 500 million stars?
501,622,731. I'm a serious person, and I'm accurate.
And what do you do with those stars?
What do I do with them?
Yes.
Nothing. I own them.
You own the stars?
Yes.
But I've already seen a king who...
Kings don't own. They reign over. It's quite different.
And what good does owning the stars do you?
It does me the good of being rich.
And what good does it do you to be rich?
It lets me buy other stars if somebody discovers them.
And what do you do with them?
I manage them. I count them and then count them again. It's difficult work, but I'm a serious person.
If I own a flower, I can pick it and take it away. But you can't pick the stars.
No, but I can put them in the bank.
What does that mean?
That means that I write the number of my stars on a slip of paper, and then I lock that slip of paper in a drawer.
And that's all?
That's enough.
That's amusing. And even poetic. But not very serious. I own a flower myself, which I water every day. It's useful to my flower that I own her. But you're not useful to the stars.
The businessman opened his mouth, but found nothing to say in reply, and the little prince went on his way. Grown-ups are certainly quite extraordinary, was all he said to himself as he continued on his journey. The fifth planet was the smallest of all. There was just enough room for a street lamp and a lamplighter. When he lit his lamp, it's as if he was bringing one more star to life, or one more flower. When he put out his lamp, that sent the flower or the star to sleep. The little prince thought it was a fine occupation, and therefore truly useful. But it was a terrible job. Year by year, the planet was turning faster and faster.
Good morning. Why have you just put out your lamp?
Orders. Good morning.
And what orders are those?
To put out my street lamp. Good evening.
And he lit his lamp again.
But why have you just lit your lamp again?
Orders.
I don't understand.
There is nothing to understand. Orders are orders. Good morning. It's a terrible job I have. It used to be reasonable enough. I put the lamp out mornings and lit it after dark. I had the rest of the day for my own affairs and the rest of the night for sleeping. And orders haven't changed.
Which means...
Which means that now that the planet revolves once a minute, I don't have an instant's rest. I light my lamp and turn it out once every minute. Good evening.
The little prince watched him, growing fonder and fonder of his lamplighter, who was so faithful to orders. He wanted to help his friend.
You know, I can show you a way to take a rest whenever you want to.
What good does that do me? When the one thing in life I want to do is sleep.
Then you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
As he continued on his journey, the little prince thought that the lamplighter was the only one who didn't strike him as ridiculous, because he was the only one thinking of something besides himself. The sixth planet was 10 times bigger than the last. It was inhabited by an old gentleman who wrote enormous books. He was a geographer. A geographer is a scholar who knows where the seas are, and the rivers, and cities, the mountains, and the deserts. All geographers love to meet explorers that come from another planet.
Where I live is not very interesting. It's so small. I have 3 volcanoes, 2 active and 1 extinct. I also have a flower.
Geographers are not interested in ephemeral things. They're not interested in flowers. The little prince went on his way thinking of his ephemeral flower he had left alone. She only had 4 thorns in which to defend herself against the world. The 7th planet was the Earth. The Earth is not just another planet. It contains 111 kings, 7,000 geographers, 900,000 businessmen, 7.5 million drunkards, 311 million egotists, in other words, about 2 billion grown-ups. So, once he reached Earth, the little prince was quite surprised not to see anyone. He was beginning to fear he had come to the wrong planet when a moon-colored loop uncoiled on the sand.
Who are you?
A snake.
What planet have I landed on?
On the planet Earth, in Africa.
Ah. And are there no people on Earth?
It's the desert here. There are no people in the desert. Earth is very big.
The little prince sat down on a rock and looked up into the sky.
Look at my planet. It's just overhead, but so far away.
It's lovely. What have you come to Earth for?
I'm having difficulties with the flower.
Ah.
Where are the people? It's a little lonely in the desert.
It's also lonely with people.
You're a funny creature, no thicker than a finger.
But I'm more powerful than a king's finger.
You're not very powerful. You don't even have feet. You couldn't travel very far.
I can take you further than a ship.
He coiled around the little prince's ankle like a golden bracelet.
Anyone I touch, I send back to the land from which he came. But you're innocent, and you come from a star. I feel sorry for you being so weak on this granite Earth. I can help you someday if you grow too homesick for your planet. I can...
Oh, I understand just what you mean.
And they were both silent. Having walked a long time through sand, searching for people, the little prince finally discovered a road. The road led to a blossoming rose garden. The little prince gazed at them. All of them looked like his flower. He felt very unhappy. His flower had told him she was the only one of her kind in the whole universe, and here were 5,000 of them, all just alike, in just one garden. She would be very annoyed if she saw this.
If she saw this, she would cough terribly and pretend to be dying, to avoid being laughed at. And I'd have to pretend to be nursing her. Otherwise, she'd really let herself die in order to humiliate me. I thought I was rich because I had one flower, and all I own is an ordinary rose.
Standing among the 5,000 roses, the little prince suddenly felt very lonely. He climbed a high mountain, hoping he would get a view of the whole planet and all the people on it. But he saw nothing but rocky peaks as sharp as needles.
Where are you? Let's be friends! I'm lonely!
And he lay down in the grass and wept. It was then that the fox appeared.
Good morning.
Good morning. Who are you? You're very pretty.
I'm a fox.
Come and play with me. I'm feeling so sad.
I can't play with you. I'm not tamed.
Excuse me? What does tamed mean?
You're not from around here. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for people. What does tamed mean?
People have guns and they hunt. It's quite troublesome. And they raise chickens. It's the only interesting thing about them. Are you looking for chickens?
No, I'm looking for friends. What does tamed mean?
It's something that's been too often neglected. It means to create ties.
To create ties?
That's right. For me, you're only a little boy, just like 100,000 other little boys. And I have no need of you. And you have no need of me either. For you, I'm only a fox, like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, we'll need each other. You'll be the only boy in the world for me. I'll be the only fox in the world for you.
I'm beginning to understand. There's a flower. I think she's tamed me.
Possibly. On Earth one sees all kinds of things.
Oh, this isn't on Earth.
On another planet?
Yes.
Well, are there hunters on that planet?
No.
Now that's interesting. And chickens?
No.
Oh, nothing's perfect. My life is monotonous. I hunt chickens, people hunt me. All chickens are just alike, and all men are just alike. But if you tame me, my life will be filled with sunshine. I'll know the sound of footsteps that will be different from all the rest. Other footsteps send me back underground. Yours will call me out of my burrow like music. Please, tame me.
I'd like to, but I haven't much time. I have friends to find, and so many things to learn.
The only things you learn are the things you tame.
Well, what do I have to do?
You have to be very patient. First, you'll sit down a little ways from me over there in the grass. But day by day, you'll be able to sit a little closer.
That was how the little prince tamed the fox. And when the time to leave was near,
I shall weep.
It's your own fault. I never wanted to do you any harm, but you insisted that I tame you.
I'll make you the gift of a secret. It's quite simple. One sees clearly only with the heart. Anything essential is invisible to the eyes.
Anything essential is invisible to the eye.
It's the time you spent on your rose that makes your rose so important. People have forgotten this truth, but you mustn't forget it. You become responsible forever for what you've tamed.
I'm responsible for my rose.
Goodbye.
it was now the 8th day since my crash landing in the desert. And I'd listened to the story about the fox as I was drinking the last drop of my water supply.
You know, the roses in the garden bloom. No one has tamed them, and they haven't tamed anyone. They are beautiful, but they're empty. One couldn't die for them. But my rose is more important, since she's the one I've watered. She's the one I put under glass. She's the one I listened to when she complained, or when she boasted. She's my rose.
Your memories are very pleasant, but I haven't yet repaired my plane. I have nothing left to drink.
My friend the fox told me...
Little fellow, this has nothing to do with the fox. We're going to die of thirst. He doesn't realize the danger, I said to myself. He's never hungry or thirsty. A little sunlight is enough for him. But the little prince looked at me and answered my thought.
I'm thirsty too. Let's find a well.
It is absurd looking for a well at random in the vastness of the desert. But even so, we started walking. And when we had walked for several hours in silence, night fell, and stars began to appear. I noticed them, as in a dream, being somewhat feverish on account of my thirst.
The stars are beautiful because of a flower you don't see. The desert is beautiful. What makes the desert beautiful is that it hides a well somewhere.
As the little prince was falling asleep, I picked him up in my arms and started walking again. I was moved. It was as if I was carrying a fragile treasure. It actually seemed to me there was nothing more fragile on earth. And walking on like that, I found the well at daybreak. It's strange. Everything is ready. The pulley, the bucket, the rope. We drank with our eyes closed. It was as sweet as a feast. That water was more than merely a drink. It was born of our walk beneath the stars, of the song of the pulley, of the effort of my arms. It did the heart good, like a present. I could breathe easy now. Why did I also feel so sad?
You must keep your promise.
What promise?
You know, a muzzle for my sheep. I'm responsible for this flower.
I drew a muzzle, and with a heavy heart, I handed it to him.
You know, my fall to earth? Tomorrow will be the first anniversary. I landed very near here.
Then it wasn't by accident that I met you 8 days ago? You were returning to the place where you fell.
You must get to work now. You must get back to your engine. I'll wait here. Come back tomorrow night.
But I wasn't reassured. I remembered the fox. You risk tears if you let yourself be tamed. When I came back from my work the next evening, I caught sight of my little prince from a distance. He was sitting on top of an old stone wall, legs dangling, and I heard him talking.
You sure it won't make me suffer long?
I stopped short, my heart pounding, but I still didn't understand.
Now go away. I want to get down from here.
Then I looked down toward the foot of the wall and gave a great start. There, coiled in front of the little prince, was one of those yellow snakes that can kill you in 30 seconds. At the noise I made, the snake flowed over the sand like a trickling fountain. I reached the wall just in time to catch my little prince in my arms, his face white as snow. He put his arms around my neck. I felt his heart beating like a dying bird's when it's been shot. Little fellow, you were frightened.
I'll be much more frightened tonight. I'm glad you found what was the matter with your engine. Now you'll be able to fly again.
How did you know?
I'm leaving today, too. It's much further, and it's much more difficult.
Once again, I felt chilled by the sense of something irreparable.
I have your sheep, and I have a crate for it, and the muzzle.
Little fellow, it's a bad dream, isn't it? All this conversation with this snake, and the meeting place, and the star.
Everyone eventually is consoled. At night, you'll look up at the stars. It's too small where I live to show you where my star is. It's better that way. My star will be one of the stars for you. And when you're consoled, you'll be glad you've known me. You'll always be my friend. You'll feel like laughing with me. So you'll like looking at all of them. Tonight, don't come.
I won't leave you. That night, I didn't see him leave. He got away without making a sound. When I managed to catch up with him, he was walking fast, with determination.
Ah, you're here. You were wrong to come. You'll suffer. I'll look as if I'm dead, and that won't be true.
I said nothing.
You understand? It's too far. I can't take this body with me. It's too heavy.
I said nothing.
But it'll be like an old abandoned shell. There's nothing sad about an old shell.
I said nothing.
I'll be looking at the stars, too. All the stars will be wells with a rusty pulley. All the stars will pour out water for me to drink.
I said nothing. And he, too, said nothing. Because he was weeping.
Here's the place. Let me go on alone. You know my flower? I'm responsible for her. She has 4 ridiculous thorns to defend her against the world.
He hesitated a little longer. Then he stood up. He took a step. I couldn't move. There was nothing but a yellow flash close to his ankle. He didn't cry out. He fell, gently, the way a tree falls. There wasn't even a sound because of the sand. It's been 6 years already. I've never told this story before. But I know he did get back to his planet. Because at daybreak, I didn't find his body. At night, I love listening to the stars. It's like 500 million little bells. But something extraordinary has happened. When I drew that muzzle for the little prince, I forgot to put in the leather strap. And then I wonder, what's happened there on his planet? Maybe the sheep has eaten the flower. Look up at the sky, and you'll see how everything changes. And no grown-up will ever understand how such a thing could be so important. If you should travel to Africa someday in the desert, I beg you not to hurry past. Wait. Wait a little, just under the star. Then if a child comes to you, if he laughs, if he has golden hair, if he doesn't answer your questions, you'll know who he is. If this should happen, be kind. Don't let me go on being so sad. Send word immediately that he's come back.